Alright everybody, it's October, and you know what that means. It's time for some horror. I got my Pumpkinhead Ale, I got my Samhain box set, and last but not least, I got Nightmare Creatures for the Nintendo 64. Let's do this.
Nightmare Creatures was released in 1997 for the PlayStation, and then in 1998 for the Nintendo 64. Now, I used to have this game on the PlayStation, and I enjoyed it well enough, but what wound up taking me out of the game was A, how dark the game was at times, and B, the adrenaline meter. Sometimes I couldn't see where the hell I was going, and I'd get lost. Without a constant stream of enemies to fight, the meter goes down and you die. Luckily, the Nintendo 64 version allows you to turn the adrenaline meter off. I think the only real advantage the PlayStation version has is the animated intro, which sets up the villain.
He works alone, his hands defiling the bodies of the dead in his thirst for knowledge and power.
Sounds like a Wednesday to me.
The Nintendo 64 didn't have room for all that fancy crap though, so instead we just get a text crawl at the beginning of the game. Alright, so the story of the game is this guy, Adam Crowley, has released a plague in London circa 1834 and unleashed an army of monsters. You gotta kill the monsters and stop it. And that's it. Well, okay, there's a little bit more to it than that, but that's the gist. Besides, you don't want a ton of story getting in the way of your action game anyway. Graphically, it's not really all that different from the PlayStation version, actually. Yeah, it's got that square, flat look with the stretched out textures that most N64 games have, but it works pretty well with this sort of gothic environment. It's certainly a long ways away from where games of this style originated. Alright, so you can play as either Ignatius or Nadia, and I strongly recommend that you choose Nadia. For one thing, she just looks a lot better on screen. She's just far more visually interesting than Ignatius is. Besides that, the best part of the game is slashing up monsters, and that just looks better with a sword. The guns are pretty effective too. Okay, so right off the bat, the controls are far from perfect. Turning can be a bit of an issue. It's kind of reminiscent of Resident Evil in that way. You're going to constantly be having to reorient yourself in order to face the enemies, as they are constantly moving around the rest of the screen as they attack you. You do have a backwards kick that you can do, so you're not totally defenseless. The game is pretty much a hack and slash with a few extra attacks in the form of collectible power-ups and disposable weapons. Now, I understand that this style of gameplay isn't really for everybody. Some people find hack and slash games to be repetitive and boring, but man, sometimes you just need to slice up endless hordes of monsters. Sometimes enemies will leap out at you unexpectedly. There's some cool sound design going on here. I like the unique sound of your footsteps based on the environment and weather conditions, and I like the sounds that the monsters make. Sometimes you can hear nearby enemies before you see them, which definitely adds to the creepiness factor. The music is mostly ambient and sparse, but what's there is pretty damn good, and it really gives atmosphere to the game. The music really picks up during the boss battles. There's definitely some parts of the game that have a frustrating level of difficulty, particularly the later parts where you can often get swarmed by enemies. It's an imperfect game, but it did have some cool ideas at the time. Now, if you're feeling impatient with the game, there are a lot of interesting and cool codes you can find online to put in. If you want to complete the game, but found yourself stuck in a certain area, you can put in a code to jump to the next level or give yourself infinite continues. Hell, you can just cut straight to the final boss if you want to. You can even play through the game as one of the monsters.
What the? Oh, come on, man. I need another Pumpkinhead Ale. Mmm, delicious. Wait a minute, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, and that's Nightmare Creatures. Time has been better to this game than I would have guessed. It's a pretty enjoyable action game. It has some issues, but the good far outweighs the bad. If you like horror and you like hack and slash, then check it out. Alright everybody, as always, thanks for watching and have a safe, but not too safe, Halloween. What's with the hand gestures?